April's a huge month for new game releases. Hi everybody, welcome to Get Indie Gaming, where today we're taking you through the best and most promising indie games you'll want to check out this April 2020.
I don't know how you do it. Traveling alone all the way out here.
Let's get things going at number 10 with Filament, which on the face of things is a relatively simple looking puzzler, although it's really anything but, with it having in places a staggering depth, both in terms of the puzzle challenge it offers, while also giving players a narrative story that's tremendous. It's got far more depth than we had really initially expected. Filament has you playing the role of an astronaut stranded aboard a spaceship, with you guiding a small robot-like bulb, i.e. the filament, through rooms where you need to wrap a cable around various objects and in doing so, open up the next room. While simple enough at first, the demo we recently played shows how ingenious Filament is. It takes a simple puzzle premise while gradually adding more and more iterations to it. There's also a great looking 3D art style at play here, which reminds us a little bit of Portal, with the puzzle sections also split up with you exploring the spaceship and finding more about the crew. Filament comes out on April 23rd onto home PCs by way of Steam. Next up at this month's number 9, Help Will Come Tomorrow is a narrative-driven resource management game where you have a few tweaks and differences to the usual format you'll usually find within such titles. Set within the harsh and frozen Siberian forests within a timeline of the October Revolution 1917, while yes, you'll need to meet the needs of the various characters in gathering resources, building a camp and looking after everyone's all-round health and well-being, there's much more going on with Help Will Come Tomorrow than you might usually find within these resource survival managers. The developers have been keen to pitch this with a greater emphasis on the story and narrative elements of the game, with it having some really interesting overall characteristics. It uses what's called a relationship system, where individual characters have, just like all of us, their own unique and differencing personal habits and traits. These in turn will have a big impact on their relationships with others, with their own mental state affecting them as individuals, but also the survival of the group as a whole. We've played the demo over the past couple of weeks, and given the wide social sphere of the game's characters, there's often a delicate and fine line to be had in dealing with and helping shape a cohesive group relationship that for the most part sees you needing to understand and manage, well, you got to manage the different class and social affiliations. It's a super interesting construct, as we've already said, that seems to work pretty well in practice. Help Will Come Tomorrow launches April 21st on PC and all of the normal consoles. At number 8, the Procession to Calvary is the successor to Joe Richardson's critically acclaimed Four Last Things, and comes onto PCs this April the 9th. It's set in the same world as the predecessor, although if you haven't picked up the first, the story here can be played independently. It's a traditional point-and-clicker with verb-coin interaction menus, all of the while using simple drag-and-drop mechanics. Stuffed full with what appears to be some good old-fashioned British humour, with more than a fair nod to Monty Python, its lofty subject matter is all treated in what seems to be a fine and refreshing level of flippancy. All the while traversing through hundreds of different paintings from the Renaissance, you'll have time to steal a ship, hunt for treasure, and perhaps take the opportunity to have a chat with the Lord himself. This looks marvellously silly and, if we're honest, feels almost perfect for where we find the world as it is today. Driving its way into the number 7 position for April 2020, and one of the standout indie game gems from the PAX East just gone. Cloudpunk, as you can see from the footage on screen now, well, it's heavily influenced by the cyberpunk genre and sees you play as a character, well, it's a delivery driver on her first day working for a semi-legal courier firm known as the same name as the game's title. From what we've seen of it so far, it looks a fairly open-ended overall experience where you're able to take on delivery jobs or just cruise around the city, taking things as you find them. You also don't necessarily have to drop off parcels at their intended delivery destinations. You're able to earn just that little bit more by perhaps bending the odd rule here and there, although such actions are likely to have consequences, with them altering the direction the story takes and your relationship with others. Cloudpunk will be out on April 23rd for home PCs on Steam, and will be out later in the year on the PlayStation 4, the Nintendo Switch, and the Xbox One.
In the rain, among the clouds.
Moving on in this month's rundown. At number 6, and recently featuring in our most wanted Metroidvania games expected out in 2020, if you haven't seen that video yet, you can check it out via the card on screen now, or by clicking the link down in the video's description below. I'll be honest, having played the demo over the past month or so, Biomass is quite simply rock hard, and as the saying goes, as tough as very, very old boots. It's going to appeal to a certain segment of gamers who relish in such opportunities as afforded by, well, we're talking Sekiro levels of hardness here, and in all honesty, it's a tad above where we normally feel comfortable. That being said, the pixel art has been handsomely crafted, as has the overall lore, which is deep and offers players a comprehensive look into the game's backstories, while making for a solid and interesting read. So back to the combat, and yeah, dealing with the enemies is hard enough, let alone the boss battles that are extremely challenging. Each of them also have their own hidden phase, which is activated by meeting various requirements, and having done so, players are given a distinct reward for such actions. Biomass comes out April 28th on home PC via Steam, and if you love a challenge and revel within gorgeous pixel art, this could be one for you. Set in 1977 Barcelona, General Franco is dead, with Spain almost ready to have the first free election since the Civil War. In The Flower Collectors, you'll play as a retired policeman as you try to unravel a mysterious murder, all while you sit within a wheelchair within your apartment. Helped by an assistant, a no-nonsense go-getting journalist who becomes your eyes and ears, you take on the task of solving what appears a complex mystery by way of your camera, binoculars and a radio transmitter, with you very much peeking out from behind your curtains. Now this is a pretty fascinating looking game, particularly with its setting within a post-Franco Barcelona, but also in how it's dealing and experimenting with voyeurism in what's clearly an overall story that's driven by world building and narrative. Also, from what we've seen of the footage so far, your character's backstory and demeanour are also likely to make The Flower Collectors, in places, a little bit of a challenge to play. This comes out to PCs on April the 21st. Dreamscaper is the debut game from San Francisco-based developers Afterburner Studios, a team comprising individuals who previously worked on the likes of 2K and Epic Games. Here we have an action RPG roguelike with elements of brawlers, top-down shooters and dungeon crawlers. You'll play as Cassidy, a young woman who finds herself dealing with depression and suffering from horrifying nightmares. Now in this free-to-play prologue, you'll take Cassidy through her waking days as she looks to build meaningful relationships with those around her. The memories you form in the waking world can also be harnessed within her dreams, with the two states of being asleep and awake being interconnected. What you do in one will have an effect on the other. With around 4 to 6 hours of playtime, this not so little taste of what's to come foreshadows the full launch come the summer later in the year. Up next, and at number 3, ITTA is a bullet hell boss rush adventure that sees you play as a girl on a mission of revenge, all over the deaths of her family, while being guided by the spirit of the family's late pet cat. Inspired by themes of personal struggle and perseverance, ITTA will feature 18 bosses in what looks to be a super tight twin-stick shooter that's accompanied by a suitably dramatic musical score. We understand players will be able to mix and switch combat styles by way of finding different weapons, each having their own differing characteristics and attack styles. Said also to ship with accessibility options in what sounds a similar way to those we so adored in Celeste. For example, if things get too tricky, you can toggle invincibility or change, let's say, the damage multipliers at any time. ITTA will come out on home PC and the Nintendo Switch on April 22nd. At number 2, and something that's really so very different, with it being quite unlike anything we've seen before, In Other Waters is essentially a narrative adventure where you assume the role of an AI assistant aiding a xenobiologist who's searching for her missing partner. Aside from the exploration of looking around the different parts of the alien ocean, where you're able to explore reefs or dive deep towards the ocean floor, you also unlock various upgrades that help and enable you to reach previously inaccessible areas. While we're under a review embargo, shall we say, what makes In Other Waters so different, and yes, we'll leave it there, comes in part with it having you play by way of the multi-part UI system, with it allowing you to interact with the world around you via a really intuitive set of controls. In doing so, you can scan your surroundings, collect samples, and generally explore and investigate the alien ocean. It's also very pretty too, and its use of complementary colours which seem to ebb and flow and change as you move through the different oceanic layers is, well, beautiful. What is so good in what In Other Waters does though is how it focuses on the overarching story and the relationship between the AI and the pilot. On the face of things, there's so much here to like, with In Other Waters coming to PC and the Switch on April 3rd. At the number 1 spot for April 2020, and we're thinking for many this won't be too much of a surprise. Moving Out drops this coming April 28th, and if you're thinking it kinda looks like Overcooked but within a furniture removal setting, well, you're pretty much spot on. And you know what, as games like these go, it's almost certain to overtake the Overcooked series as our most loved and go-to local couch co-op game of all time. What it does in a slightly different and for us better way that you have with Overcooked is how the chaos seems to avoid some of the passive-aggressive tendencies that seem to arise when playing a game within such a high-pressure setting as a restaurant. It's just so honestly so much fun. You're able to play as many different characters, including cats and dogs, with it also having a huge range of accessibility options. You're able to increase time limits, reduce the difficulty, and even lower the weight of some of the items to make them easier to carry. There's also a scalable UI, dyslexic-friendly fonts, and subtitles. As huge fans of local party couch co-op games, Moving Out is brilliant, and from our time with it so far, it's likely to be one of the best of its kind, and we've no doubt it'll feature in our Game of the Year rundown come December. Moving Out's coming to PC and all of the usual consoles. So which of these games or any others out this month are you most looking forward to playing? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and while you're here, how about clicking that like button and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, while also turning on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos. Thanks once again for watching, and we'll see you all again next time.